Hello and welcome to the Cowboy Chronicles, the Oklahoman's Oklahoma State football podcast. I am your host, Scott Wright, joined this week by Marshall Scott. Marshall, first of all, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Secondly, I apologize that we're not at Stone Cloud, which you're a regular guest when I'm there. Can't be there today, but I do appreciate you taking some time to hop on here with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Always happy to do it. Just drinking water today, so the lack of beer is noticeable, but we'll power through.
Yeah, I forgot. I had actually purchased a Monster Energy drink strictly to drink on this podcast, and I forgot it. It's in my fridge now. I'm not going to take time to go get it now, but it was a whole bit that I had prepared because everybody likes to point out how much I love Red Bull, which I do, and obviously the Big 12 has the Monster Energy thing going, so it's been a bit of a topic with some folks on the beat. So I had a Monster Energy drink ready to drink here on the show live for everyone, and totally forgot about it. So I'm going to have to, maybe I'll just save it for my next pod. But anyway, moving on. Want to talk to you about a variety of things that are going on right now. But most notably, your kind of gut takeaways from our first opportunity to meet Eric Morris in person on Monday.
Yeah, it was cool to finally get to that point because this as we've discussed, this was a very long coaching search, and it just sort of, at least my view towards the end of it, I was just ready to get to the end.
Yes.
But yeah, it was great. I always leave those sort of introductory press conference type things wanting a little bit more. There's just so much going on that, like, you can't ask him everything that you want to know at that point. There's so much that I'm sure he doesn't even know at that point. But I think he hit all the right notes. The phrase "won the press conference." I think he very much did that. It was nice hearing. There were a lot of interesting incarnate word stories and stuff like that. Those were fun to me. His breakdown of, like, sort of how they're gonna turn this thing around in terms of playmakers all over the field. Grit. It's going to be one through the off season. So I think he hit all the points. Now it's really going to come to, what sort of roster he can put together over the next month or so, and sort of see where this program's headed.
I do really enjoy his kind of storytelling nature. He told us some Mike Leach stories, which were great. Told us the story of recruiting Cam Ward down to Incarnate Word. Told us some other stuff about building that program down there and what that was like. And I think that he's going to be, from a media perspective, fantastic to work with. So I'm really looking forward to that. But I've talked about this on previous podcasts. I'm going to get your take, though. I think it felt like he was 1 or 1A, 1 or B, 1B, 1A or 1B on the list the majority of the time, even though other names kind of circled around for a while. I really think he was high on the list, and I think you could get the feel why when Chad Warburg talks about fit. It really felt like he was kind of culturally an ideal fit, and then you add in what he's done on the football field, and really pretty impressive for how he's going to fit at Oklahoma State. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah. There's always, like, whenever an OSU job is open, there's a portion of the fan base that instantly puts an OSU guy there. Like, you even think of, like, whenever the offensive coordinator, like, situations going on and people aren't happy with Casey Dunn, people are like, Brandon Whedon should be the offensive coordinator. So that's just not how this works. That's just not going to happen. So there are always those takes. And I think there was, like, maybe a lot more takes going into this search that was like, okay, it does not have to be an OSU guy. You look at wrestling, you look at basketball, those programs seem to be turning around with non-alums in them. With that being said, Eric Morris is about as OSU guy a non-OSU guy can be. It seems like, he talked about, his small town beginnings. That's something that pulls at my heartstrings, being a small town kid. And, you move to Stillwater, and people from Dallas are telling you that Stillwater is a small town, and you're looking at them like they're crazy. Like, hey, this place has 3 Walmarts. What are you talking about? This is a small town. So, like, those type of stories, I think were excellent. The fit in terms of offensive firepower, and that's sort of what Oklahoma State, when it's at its best, has been known for. So yeah, I think I thought he would be a pretty good fit going into the introductory press conference, but just hearing him speak and sort of hearing him talk about, the small town nature of things, made me even more solidified in that take that this was a really good in terms of the fit piece.
Agreed, and obviously, when there's this much change, there's going to be things that are upsetting to people in the fan base, and we're recording this on Thursday. Yesterday, a little actually less than 24 hours ago, news came out that Rob Glass is not going to oversee the strength and conditioning part of program with the football team, still employed by the university as of right now. I think maybe has an opportunity to be sort of the guy that oversees all strength and conditioning programs, just not directly involved with football like he has been. And uh, I've long been a very strong believer in Rob Glass, but I do understand that when you've got a new coach, he wants people around him that he understands and knows how to communicate with, and I think that's an important piece of this, is as far as why he's maybe going to make a change. But Marshall, your initial reaction to seeing that Rob Glass would not be sticking around?
Yeah, I don't know. I was both shocked and not shocked almost at the same time.
Right.
It's something that if you're, that strength coach position is such a big deal for head coaches that if you are a head coach, you probably want some sort of relationship with the guy that's over there. So I totally get that. But then I also think I listened to Josh Pate quite a bit, and he was pretty critical of Brian Kelly for whenever he got to LSU, sort of ripping out some long-standing guys there, and I believe one of those guys was the strength coach. I don't think that's really the situation. I don't think it's as maybe hostile as that was. The Oklahoma State posted a picture of Morris and Rob Glass like talking with each other. I think on that first day that he got there. So I think there's been a bit of a turn on the body bag Glass thing because of like injuries and stuff of late. But if you just talk to any of the players over the last 20 years, they'll tell you how great Rob Glass is, and that's probably the people that I'll listen to a little bit more as far as that stuff goes. So yeah, I think it's just it really is a new era in Stillwater. I hope that Rob, if he wants to, hangs around. As you mentioned, it sort of seems like that could be on the offering, but yeah, I think it's just such a crazy time to sort of see. We knew that this transition was coming for months now, but it's sort of weird to see it all actually take place. So I think it was an excellent run of being a strength coach for a football program, and you just listen to the players and how much they've he's impacted their lives. That's never going to go away. But this is the Morris era. He's got his own guy, and we'll sort of see how that goes.
I can't take credit for this idea. I actually got an email about it from a reader, but I'm kind of all in on it now after really thinking about it, and maybe it needs a little bit of time to kind of separate from the current moment. But I think Rob Glass should be a candidate for the Ring of Honor, considering what he has meant to the program over the years, and like you said, all the guys that he has impacted. I think he would absolutely be worthy of something like that. But it would be unique, obviously, to put your strength coach in the Ring of Honor. But as you alluded to, this guy is so important in college football the way it is set up today, because all those off-season things, he's the guy that can actually interact with the players the most, and be around them, and see them in the weight room, and when he's got them out there running stairs, and all the things that they do. So a hugely important piece of college football, and in this day and age. So we'll see how it goes. But I totally understand a guy like Eric Morris wanting to have the majority of his people around him. And that brings us to Skylar Cassidy, who is coming along with him as defensive coordinator. He was only at North Texas with him for 1 year, but they worked together. They worked at Texas Tech at the same time, obviously on opposite sides of the ball. So they have a relationship going back to then when Cassidy was still very young. He's only 31 now, and I think might be the youngest defensive coordinator in college football still at this point. But that's another one that has brought some mixed reactions, because he is a young guy and is not doesn't have any Power 4 experience as a coordinator, all of those sorts of things. But Marshall, what was your take on the Skylar Cassidy addition at defensive coordinator?
Yeah, I think it is a good one. I think I understand maybe some hesitation in that he is so young. This is his first sort of dipping his toes into this level. But you just sort of look at the 2024 North Texas stats compared to the 2025 North Texas defensive stats, and it's evident that that thing's headed in the right direction. One thing that I sort of hope for Oklahoma State's defensive side of the ball is that there's just some level of consistency. And maybe with a young guy, you really get that. But, this will be, their sixth defensive coordinator in 6 seasons at this point, which is just absolutely crazy. So, it's nobody's really had any terms of consistency, both the players, the coaching staff. It's all been sort of a mess on that end of the ball. So, I think if they could just get a guy who is young like Cassidy and sort of just have him, be there for a little bit and implement a system, surely this thing is going to, start getting into a little bit better of a position, just because, it's been so rough of late. Obviously, Clint Bowen sort of started having some success there at the end, but it's just been a mess on that side of the football. So I just hope for consistency. I understand some of the drawbacks, and that he's young, he's inexperienced at this type of level, but a lot of people that you read the 30 under 30 or 35 under 35 or insert number under that same number, he's basically on all those lists. So it seems like and then we talk about fit too, him being Braden Cassidy's brother, him being the son of a former Oklahoma State defensive coordinator under Bob Simmons. That's just like sort of a cool little anecdote about it. But I just want some consistency on that side of the ball.
Went to kindergarten in Stillwater, kindergarten and
Wow.
first grade. Yeah, it's kind of a fun little circle that he is going through. Back before Mike Gundy hired Todd Grantham last year, I had a list of 10 guys that I floated out, and I had Cassidy on the list at that time because you were hearing a lot of buzz about him. And I do understand why the fans have some reservations, but I think this is a really good hire, getting this guy coming up. And he's 31, but this is a guy who suffered an injury in high school that ended his playing career, and he essentially started coaching in high school. Went to Auburn as a student assistant and coached for 3 years there under some really talented coaches, and then got into graduate assistant and then position coach, and really quickly into a defensive coordinator position at Abilene Christian under Keith Patterson, a guy that he had worked with at Texas Tech, obviously an Oklahoma guy from Marlow. I was thinking Medill for a second, but no, it was Marlow, is where the Pattersons are from.
Those Marlow, where a second grade Marshall Scott wrestled his first wrestling tournament. I think I got third place, and there might have been 8 people in the bracket. So I don't know that. I don't know as nice as it sound, but top half at least.
There you go. Very nice. But I really do think this is. I think they're getting this guy at the perfect time, and like I said, he could be a guy that sticks around. And the funny thing about, as you mentioned, 6 defensive coordinators in 6 years, the one period of time where they had the same guy for 2 years in a row, they didn't even get to run the same defense. Brian Nardo had to change his defense his second year, and so the chaos of the defensive side of the ball for this program over the last 6 years is really pretty incredible, especially when you go back to how good they were in 2021 in the last season of Jim Knowles. It's kind of a weird ride that they've been on that side of the ball.
Yeah, you've seen both like the highs. That 21 defense was quite potentially like the best in program history. And then I think the first half of this year was obviously really rough, but I think last year's defense and just the yards per carry sort of numbers there was, it's crazy how, it was the best ever, and it was maybe the worst ever within a span of a couple of years.
Yeah. We've seen both in the last 5 years, which is pretty insane. Anything else that has jumped out to you about, hirings, whether it be Raj Murdy or, or guys that aren't sticking around that we thought might have a chance, though a lot of those decisions I don't think have fully been made at this point. But anything else about the transition in general that has jumped out at you?
Hearing you talk about Skylar Cassidy and sort of, his entry into the coaching field made me think a little bit of Raj Murdy. He's still a super young dude, but I was listening to some podcast with him, and he said that, he went out to like football practice in high school one day, and it was pretty evident that he was not going to, play. So basically instantly starts his coaching career. The high school coach would bring him in on meetings that, whenever a college coach would come to recruit one of the guys, he'd let Raj sit in there and sort of listen to how that process goes. So, I think there's like a level of youth that's really being injected into Oklahoma State right now. That's pretty exciting. And it's just such a, it's not right, wrong, or indifferent, but like the fact that, the old guard in Mike Gundy had been there for 20 years and everything was so established, for this to all be new, it's definitely exciting. Will it work? It seems like it's headed in a better direction than it has been, but there's just so much unknown, so much excitement that it's sort of fun to just sort of hypothesize what could happen next season.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's crazy. I hadn't really just put these two things together, but Raj Murdy was not even yet in elementary school when Mike Gundy was hired as the head coach at Oklahoma State. Now he's part of the transition after Gundy gets fired. So kind of pretty weird. I've listened and read some stuff with Murdy as well. You can tell that he is a very intelligent and a very confident
Mhm.
person in his intelligence and how he understands. He just comes across as very mature for his age, and obviously, you look at how quickly he got his college degree and how quickly he's grown in this business to be at this point. At the age of 24, it's essentially what can be his sixth season in a similar type of role. He hasn't been a general manager the whole time, but in player personnel, essentially going back to his time at Houston. So pretty crazy to see a kid coming up this way, and you feel like Eric Morris is building a relationship with this guy that could benefit both of them for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. The 24 thing is just absolutely crazy. I turned 30 this year, and I've still felt young for the most part. But hearing that Oklahoma State's new football GM is 24 years old, that was like one of the early like, ooh, Marshall, you're getting old stabs that I've sort of felt. They're NBA players who are younger than me now. That I've still got to get over that every once in a while. But yeah, the fact that Oklahoma State's got a 24-year-old GM that I'm 6 years older than is like, where did I go? What do I got going on? So yeah, it's super interesting.
All right, man. Well, let's move on to the Stone Cloud six pack here to wrap this one up today. A little bit of roster talk to start off the Stone Cloud six pack. Obviously, we've seen a few guys go in the portal already, or announced that they're going to go in the portal on January 2nd, which I think is I would get, if I was in that situation, I'd be getting my name out as early as possible as well. Try to give yourself the best opportunity. Here's my first question in the Stone Cloud six pack. However, anybody that is in the portal already, which would most likely be the guys that went in during the season, but you don't know. Anybody that has either gone in the portal or said they're going in the portal, will any of those guys be back on the roster at Oklahoma State next season?
Is this just a firm yes no? Is that what I'm looking for? Or do I have
Yeah,
to
that's
pick out
fine.
these guys individually?
No,
Um,
I mean, if you got one, you think there's any of these guys that the program would pursue to keep around.
yeah, it's tough because you don't really know Eric Morris's, how he's sort of thinking about things, how he thinks about a roster. I was a little shocked to see Shetron go in this week, but the fact that he went in post Morris would maybe lead me to believe like maybe that's sort of not a final decision, but maybe that's he said it out. So um, I don't know. I would still really like to see Grant Seagren return just because I think he's got a high ceiling.
Same.
I think that he could really do a lot. Outside of that, one of those safeties would be nice, whether that be a Dylan Smith, who I believe there was some report, and it's on me for it was either 247 or an on 3 report that said that he'd had some preliminary conversations about what a return could look like. He also mentioned some other schools that he was talking to. He was on the field with Cam Smith during the senior night sort of stuff. So maybe not all is lost there, but you think of a David Kabongo, you think of a Landon Cleveland, who I believe also went in post hiring. So maybe that's not going to be the case, but those are some guys that I'd certainly kick the tires on. Josh Ford is obviously still out there, has taken a lot of high level visits, Alabama's, Oklahoma's, stuff like that. If Oklahoma State could wedge its way back in there, that would certainly be a big boom to get a Stillwater kid. The fan base would certainly love that. So yeah, those are some names. I thought Trey Griffiths is maybe on a fairly decent trajectory. I'd heard pretty good things about him, throughout the fall camp and stuff like that. But again, I don't really know what Eric Morse is definitely looking for in receiver. So that's what makes it a little tricky. So now that I've mentioned everybody that went in the portal, I think I'd hang around. I'd hang around like a Grant Seagren, and then a Dylan Smith or a David Kabongo. I think is maybe who, if I was Eric Morse, who I'd put near the top of my list, and obviously Josh Ford, but I just don't
Right.
know where that's at.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know that the window is entirely closed on Ford, but it certainly feels like he's progressing toward making a decision on one of the. I think he listed like five programs in that Instagram post that he had. So, um, Yeah, I can't add anything or disagree with anything you said there. So we'll move on. We'll talk specifically about quarterback. I was a little surprised to see Mason Schubert go announce that he's going to go in the portal, just because that's the type of guy that you'd probably want to keep around for to have another body, another arm in practice, those sort of things. But maybe he wants to go and compete for a starting job, somewhere like Southwestern. I think is where he was originally committed before he decided to come to Oklahoma State last year.
Go Dogs, by the way.
Very nice. So a little surprised by that. Um, uh, my question, though, is will Zane Flores or Hoss Haney be on the OSU roster next year?
It feels tough to say right now. Just
Mhm.
say that, just because it's no confirmation that Mestamaker is coming to Oklahoma State, but that is just generally the sort of vibe I think that a lot of people have gotten. That he would follow Eric Morris, and then if you're one of those guys, it's like, really, what does this look like? I think, if you're Zane specifically, and either Haas stays or Mestamaker comes over, I think if you're saying, you probably have to have the understanding that you're not going to be the starting quarterback next year. I think that's maybe fair to say. I do think it's a little, I don't know if odd's the right word, but neither of those guys have made their intentions known that they are going to enter the portal yet. So I think that's been an interesting thing about this, is that Eric Morris has been the coach for a couple of weeks now. There have been all these rumors of Mestamaker coming, and neither of those guys have hopped in the portal. So if I had to, I think I'd still lean no on either of those guys being on the roster, but that's just a gut sort of feel, because like I said, I mean, I'm very interested in the fact that neither have to this point. And maybe Haas thinks, hey, maybe I could compete with this guy. Maybe Eric Morris thinks, holy crap, this Haas kid could be a weapon in an offense. So yeah, I've got some reservations, but I would just lean no, given the quarterback position and the current state of college football, where everybody's sort of looking for their spot, and only one of those guys can play.
Yeah, I would be the same on that, and with the with Zane having to be kind of the punching bag at quarterback this year through such a difficult year, it feels like a fresh start somewhere else would probably do him some good as well. I think give him a clean slate, and maybe be able to build on some of the positives that we started to see from him at times down the stretch, and maybe go have a good career somewhere. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm most likely thinking that it will not happen, but um, I would give Haas the best odds of being a guy that sticks around. So, all right, next one, bigger picture on the roster. I think there's about 70 guys right now that have not gone in the portal, but do have eligibility left. Will half of those guys be on this roster? So I'm over or under 35 guys from the current roster still with this team when they go into spring ball.
Yeah, it's another tough one, but I think I'm taking, 35 is like a beautiful number. I think I'm going to take the I think I'm going to take the under. Just my reasoning for that is it feels like and people keep asking me, how much money does Oklahoma State football have? It's like, I don't know. But it feels like, based on what people have said, what Weiberg has said, that there is going to be some money to be had. And I imagine that Eric Morris would want to then create his roster to the best of his abilities. We sort of saw that with some of the high school recruits, that he didn't want to sign these guys that he didn't have detailed evaluations on, that he didn't see in person, things like that. So I think there's a lot of that he's going to be okay with sort of reshaping this roster in his own image right now. So I think I would lean under. There's just so many guys. There's so many evaluations. How does this staff see certain guys that maybe last staff didn't see? We saw some of that obviously with defenders over the last couple of years, where it's like Kenneth Harris wasn't playing under the last two defensive coordinators, but now something about him these guys like. So maybe there's a little bit of that going on. But yeah, I think I would say the under, just because of sort of how, I don't know if cutthroat's the right word, that Oklahoma State was with that recruiting class to get it up to the numbers it wanted. I think that Murdy and Morris are going to want to sort of tool this roster how they prefer.
I agree, and that's what my gut says. My gut says under is probably the right pick here. I'm going to go ahead and go over, though, only based on the fact that there are a lot of young guys that seem promising, and I think that's a good way to build out some depth in your program with guys that you've got good practice film on and can have face-to-face meetings with and get a real feel for in terms of building those relationships, which are obviously so important to this staff. So I think that there are enough young guys at a variety of positions that they could focus on a lot of those guys to kind of lay the early foundation of what this program is going to look like, rather than having to scramble and try to fill 80 spots or whatever it would be that they would have to try to fill. So that's but again, my gut instinct is that you're probably right, that it'll be under 35.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else about the roster that intrigues you right now? Because it's obviously we're very early in this process. We're recording this on December 11th. Long way till January 2nd. But anything else that you're really curious or watching right now?
I thought I think it's been interesting that, sort of like we discussed, not a ton of guys have really entered the portal. It hasn't been just an outright fire sale. It's a fairly decent. I think there's like north of 20 guys in there right now, but that still doesn't feel super crazy given all that's happened over the last 3 months. So it's been the last couple of days, it's been like one or two have trickled out each day. You just sort of wonder how long that goes, or if everybody's maybe waiting for the big window and then that stuff's going to start to happen. But it has been interesting to me that it hasn't just been an absolute like dash to the portal at this point.
Yeah, same. All right, with that, it is draft time, and we will roll into this draft, which is Christmas movie characters. For the folks who watched last week's draft, they are aware Joe Masato and I had the same draft, and so Marshall, so that you understand, I'm not going to take any of the 6 guys that were drafted last week. Ooh. Just to bring in some different names, but everything's on the board for you because I did not prepare you for that. So whoever you want to go with is available. I'm going to stay away from the six characters who were drafted last week to spice some things up this week. But with that, it's all yours for the first pick.
That's interesting. I am a regular listener. I haven't listened to you and Joe's last week, but I think my number one pick, I'm going to go with Kevin McAllister. He's very resourceful. How could you not? Yeah, I don't know what are these people fighting? Are they playing football? I don't know, but Kevin McAllister could figure it out, I think. So he's going to be my number one pick.
All right. Well, I went into last week thinking he needed to be the number one pick. I'm glad that you took him there. But I panicked a little bit and had to rearrange my board after a certain character was drafted number one instead. So that changed some things up, and McAllister didn't go until round 2. But I think a very worthy number one pick. For my number one pick, I'm going with a little bit of a random one, because everybody who thinks of A Christmas Story, and I realize I might be going over your head. I don't even know if you've seen the Christmas.
My mom would Christmas Eve, because there was that, what was it, TBS that just runs it 24/7 for the last week.
A day, right?
Yeah, that was her Christmas wrapping thing. So it's the all of Christmas Eve is basically on during my childhood. I've seen plenty of A Christmas Story.
Yeah, but the natural reaction there is to go for Ralphie, who obviously is the main character and fantastic. But I'm going with the dad, who I'm fairly certain they never actually say his name. I think they just call him the old man. So I'm going with the old man from A Christmas Story. He was the character that I was drawn most to, with the leg lamp and all the other crazy things that he does. It's a major award. I'm a big fan of the old man.
Yeah, very much lived in his own world. Wasn't going to let other people's actions get him down. I liked that about him. So
yeah, exactly. All right, Marshall, round 2 to you.
Yeah, this one was going to be my number one. It's my favorite Christmas movie, but I just felt like Kevin McAllister's, intuitiveness really set him apart. But Buddy the Elf, again, efficiency. What are you talking? I haven't said etches. I still don't even know if I've said that at that point. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. The red things with the thing. Whether it be that, whether it be decorating an entire room within the span of a few hours. Super efficient. Maybe not the most efficient in elf world, but definitely efficient in human world. So Buddy the Elf, just what a movie. That's my favorite Christmas movie of all time. And then Will Ferrell really killed that.
Oh, absolutely. Fantastic pick. He also was a second round pick in last week's draft. Now, you mentioned his talent on the Etch-a-Sketch. Have you ever actually played or used an Etch-a-Sketch?
I have nothing great has come out of that. I haven't
No, no, not at
no
all.
mastering whatsoever, but I've made some lines.
Yeah, that's really about all you could do. I don't the people that make like art on those things are I don't know. It's fake. I'm not buying it.
I wonder if you because if you hand a kid an iPad these days, he somehow knows everything about it. If you hand a kid an I still can't say that word. I found out that I could say it in my head. I can't say it out loud.
Right.
But if you hand a kid one of those things nowadays, does he just like look at it like, what the heck is this? I don't know.
I'm actually going to test that now on my son. He's
Yeah.
16. Hey, he's seen the one in Elf in the movie, but never actually held one in his hands. I kind of want to do that now. So I'm gonna have to test that out.
That'd be great.
All right, my second pick in this one, I'm going to my favorite Christmas movie myself, and because the two characters from this movie were picked in the last draft, I'm gonna have to go with Rusty, the son on Christmas Vacation. He's definitely a strong number three. I think there's a lot of directions I could have go. I considered the squirrel at one point as I was making my list. I considered Margot, the neighbor, because I really enjoy her as a character. I considered even the boss because he's he's the one that becomes the softie at the end and doubles the Christmas bonus and all that. So yeah, so but Rusty is the one that me and my son probably quote the most behind the other two, being Clark and cousin Eddie.
Mhm.
So I went with Rusty because he is well respected in our household when we watch Christmas Vacation.
Yeah, that I love Christmas Vacation. It's one that hasn't really been like I'd seen it throughout my childhood, but I haven't really it hadn't been in the regular rotation until like I became an adult.
Mhm.
But yeah, that one is one that gets watched every year at this point. It's outstanding.
Same.
Chevy Chase, apparently, maybe not the nicest guy. I'm a big Community fan, and
Mhm.
apparently the people on that show didn't always love being around Chevy Chase, but it makes for a great series of vacation movies. I will say that.
Yes, absolutely, fully agree. All right, with that, round three, back to you, Marshall.
Yeah, so cousin Eddie was definitely going to be a guy that I had eyes on here, but I don't want to, I wanted a little chaos in my team, but I don't want to double dip on some things. I don't know. This is a horrible movie. I'll start by saying that. Have you seen Red One?
I
It's
have, yes.
new. It's got The Rock in it. It's I think it's a bad movie, but I enjoy it at the same time. I think their Santa Claus is an interesting twist on Santa Claus, and that he's buff, he needs the carbs and stuff like that. He's doing workouts. So yeah, that's gonna be who I think it's J.K. Simmons who plays Santa Claus there. I think. Yeah, I sort of like the movie. It also is a bad movie, but it's one that I think I'm gonna start putting in my rotation just because it's a nice twist on the classic Christmas movie.
It is. It's unique for sure. No complaints there. I'm gonna go old school for my final pick of this draft, going way back to the movie Miracle on 34th Street, which was my dad's favorite Christmas movie. So we watched it a ton every year. Probably the first movie that he owned on VHS when we got our first VCR, so that he could replay it as frequently as possible. And my character from that is Fred Gailey, who is he's the lawyer, the guy that proves Santa is real, and was one of the heroes at the end of the movie. Funny story about that movie though. One night when I was in kindergarten, my dad was watching it, and he was laying on the living room floor right in front of the TV watching it, and I was watching the movie but also kind of playing football around him in the living room floor, and I tossed the ball over him and acted like it was a fumble, and I had to dive over him to recover the fumble, and we had a brick hearth around our fireplace, and busted my head open. Got
Mhm.
my first emergency room trip was during Miracle on 34th Street. So that's probably one of the reasons I always remember that movie so well at Christmas time.
The CTE of it is burned into your memory for sure.
Exactly.
Is this a safe space to say that I've never seen Miracle on 34th Street? I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah,
I haven't
yeah,
gotten that far.
perfectly fine. It's
Huh.
it's obviously very old, and then even the remake was like in the '90s, so I would not have expected you to have followed through on that one. And it's a good movie, and it's a good old movie in particular, but it is very much a like 19. I don't know. I don't even know when it was actually originally made, but It was black and white. The original was black and white. So
I'll catch Miracle on 43rd Street. I'll catch the next one.
Wait for the sequel when The Rock plays Santa.
There we go. That's what I'm looking for.
Right. All right, Marshall. Well, that does it. Just for your information, so you know, Clark and Eddie were both taken in the last draft. Elf, Kevin McAllister, the Grinch, as played by Jim Carrey, and
he was on my list for sure.
And Scott Calvin from the Santa Claus movies, also.
Okay, and he was also on my list as well. So
another solid.
Yeah, I tried to divert with Red One there at the end, and like I said, I'm fully aware it's not the greatest of movies, but I enjoy it a little bit.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. All right, good deal. Marshall Scott of Pistols Firing, thank you very much once again for joining me, and we'll do this again sometime soon, so we can tell the folks all about all the changes going on at Oklahoma State. Thank you for watching.